Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, good morning to a few of you. Welcome back to another live event here at WPStudio. I am Benjamin, the chief code breaker and internet destroyer. And anything else I can do during a live webinar, I can try it. We are going to be expanding upon what we did yesterday, where we talked about looking at custom post types, building them, all the different options with the Pods plugin. Today we are going to go like into light speed. So this is like we're on Star Trek here. We're all on the Enterprise. I'm about ready to warp us into an area that most people don't talk about, but it is a really cool and flexible option, especially if you work with clients. So in this example, I am going to be using, and we're going to build out several pods. And we're going to do this fairly quickly, and then we're going to come back in and look at the fields. Now, the first 5 minutes of this is going to be a little bit more like a refresh or review of yesterday, because we're going to come in here, and again, I'm using the same website we used yesterday. So I haven't touched it since yesterday, and so therefore all the pods that we had already created and played around with are still existing here. So we're going to create a new pod, and this new pod is going to be kind of our base pod or base custom post type, where we are going to create, we're going to do things like different wines. So we're going to talk about, we'll call this one our wines, and we're just going to say next step. So that now that we've created a wine area, I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to save the pod, leave, but before we leave, I'm going to click all wines because I want to get the URL just like here, because we're going to embed or make some additional pods, custom post types, show up in the wine area. So let's go ahead and copy this and go back down to pods, and we're going to create another pod. And in this one, this time, we're going to create a grape. Now, some people might say, okay, you're creating a custom post type with wines, and so therefore we want to be able to sort wines by maybe the grape type, maybe the region the wine is created, the country. And people might choose taxonomies because they're like, taxonomies are ways to classify things. One of the things to keep in mind when you are building the structure of a website using Pods is Pods allows us to integrate custom post types and use relationship fields. You're going to see here in just a moment that we don't have to use taxonomies. A benefit of using another pod, another custom post type, is I can create a landing page for each grape. Whereas with taxonomies, if I just simply had a category of news, a category of updates, and I were to click on the update taxonomy or the update category, all that's going to do is give me a list of information. It's not going to have like a descriptive page or a landing page that we could use. So by setting up grapes and wine regions as other custom post types, it allows us to treat them as a post type, and therefore each post type can have a landing page with a description, photos of the grape, that type of stuff. So let's go ahead and finish this up, and we're going to hit next step. But before we leave this, we want to adjust the admin UI that we talked about yesterday, and we want to put it underneath the wine custom post type. So I'm going to paste this in here. It's the edit.php post_type wine. Save this, and now it's going to move the grape outside of this, and now it's showing up here. We're going to create one more custom post type, and this time it's going to be region, because a lot of wines are classified by regions. And we'll do the same exact thing we just did for the type of grape. So once I've done this, I place this edit.php post type wine, and now we have begun to put our grapes and our regions, everything is stored under the wine custom post type in the admin menu. Now, we're not going to do this in today's session, but if you wanted to, you could then begin to put the dash icon, change those things, customize the labels. We're going to spend most of our time now in the labels area. So, in the region, what we're going to do is we're going to create a few labels. So let's go ahead and create the first label. The first label, let's just call this one our... before I do this, let me cancel this just so you see. Because in our advanced options for the region custom post type, we are saying we want to use the title and the editor. We could say featured image, which would be like the post thumbnail that would be included, and we will do that because the featured image might be a great way for us to take a photo or put a map image of the region that we're having. So before we go to add additional fields, we need to say that, okay, our post here already is going to, our post editor screen is already going to have a title field, the editor field, and the excerpt of the featured image. So let's save this. Now we're going to go in and let's go ahead and add another label, another field. Again, we're in the region custom post type. And before I add this, I'll give you a quick example that if we go over here to the region and we're going to add a new region, this is what it looks like. We've got our title, content, featured image, and the publish screen, the publish meta box. So when we add a field, let's create our first one, and let's talk about I want to put just a very basic thing, and so we're going to call this one our custom field. I'm not putting anything special here. I just want a plain text field because we're going to add a few other things. Again, that's called custom field. In this, we're going to scroll down here to another type of field, and it's a type of field called a relationship. A relationship gives us the ability to use pre-made drop-downs. Now, yeah, there's more explanation here. We'll get to it, but I want you to keep in the back of your mind a pre-made drop-down as what we're looking at. So as you scroll through here, we can connect up different post type, different taxonomies, different user information. But come down here. Pods is nice enough. The developers of Pods were nice enough to already pre-populate several lists. So if I want to say these countries, we're going to do something like country location. So I have created a relationship to a list of countries. What does that mean? If I go to additional field options, I can choose, am I doing a drop-down, radio buttons, and autocomplete? And am I going to allow multiple selections if I wanted to? So when I add this, and the only reason I'm saying multiple selections is, let's say we picked a wine region that might be in the southeast of France that might spill over into the northwest of Italy. So you might have the ability, or you might want the ability to have multiple countries. So let's save this one. I'm going to go ahead and save this pod. So we're updating the custom post type because I want you to see what has now happened with these two fields that we have added. By default, Pods, when it adds those fields to the custom post type, it's going to automatically make a listing of more fields. It's going to add a meta box. Gary, yes, there's some great stuff coming in the next version of Pods. And I just realized I may have saved it as a checkbox. Did I actually save that as a checkbox? I did. Okay, let's go to autocomplete. I did not want to do checkbox. Update field. So let's refresh this. Okay, so now that I have autocomplete, I have a field that I can enter, And I can start typing France. And because it's multi-select, I could select, and it's auto-completing as I begin to type. So again, that's a relationship to another area. But what we're going to do here, and we're going to handle this in just a moment, we need to go back to pods. So that was just a quick little example of adding a few fields. We need to go back to our original pod, the wine custom post type, and we're going to connect up both the grapes and the region custom post types. So let's go to the wines. We're going to edit the wine, and here we have no fields. So let's go ahead and start connecting through relationships, and I'm going to say type of grape. And the type of grape would be a relationship, which is, I'm going to come down here to the post type grapes. Now in this, again, there's no other field yet. We'll take care of that later. This is simply going to create a drop-down list. That's what I'm doing, a single select drop-down list that is going to be a drop-down of all the titles, the names of the different grapes. So let's save this, save this field. And we're going to also have region location, because we need to connect that pod. Regional location. I'm using a little bit bigger words, so I'm not repeating location or region. I'm adding some different things, so it's going to make it easier when we dive in a little bit deeper and customize the meta boxes. So we're going to come down here to relationship, and let's go ahead and connect up our region custom post type. And again, we'll be able to, I'm just going to say single select drop down. We're going to keep this fairly simple. Okay, so I've got two items here. Let me just go ahead and add in just a few more things like flavor profile. And we'll leave that as a plain text. Color of wine. We're going to choose a color of wine, but this time we're going to connect it with a color picker. So this is enough for us to get started. So we're going to save the pod, which is going to update the custom post type, which on our screen, if we were to go add a new wine, again, by default, it will automatically create a simple more field meta box. So we have type of grape, and again, there's nothing there to select. I'm going to show you how it will auto update here in just a moment. Flavor profile is just a text field, and there's a color picker that you can select which color wine. Any questions so far about how Pods is automatically creating those meta boxes? Okay. So now let's go here, and we're just going to create a few grape names. And I don't know grape names, so let's just call this one Big Grapes. And that will be one type of grape. Maybe we'll have a small grape. And we can have a gross grape. And fine, thank you for helping me. We have a goofy grape, yes. Fine, we'll have a real one in here. Okay, some of you are much more wine connoisseurs than I ever could be. Okay, so we've got a few grapes. Again, we can take a look at this. See, we've got a few grapes. If we were to quick run back to the wine, I want you to see that, hey, we've got types of grapes now showing up. The same thing as if we create some regions. North. Again, I'm not trying to waste time creating official regions. publish, south, up, and we'll add one more. The region of confused. So now if we go back and we've got, again, 4 different regions. When we add a new wine, we have our fields showing up. Now, Mario, your question, what if we add text here? We're gonna do that in just a moment. But remember, we wanted to have a text field where we could have a description of the wine. We wanted to have the title. We wanted to have the type of grape, the region. This is just saying that this is showing how we can use relationship fields to connect up with one another. We'll deal with the template in just a moment. So, I'm going to add one more area to our wine custom post type. We're going to add another field, and maybe we will put a field that says awards. And this awards, I'm going to leave it as a plain text just because they're easy to manipulate. What if the awards was something that we did not want everybody working with the site to be able to touch or to add something to? We only wanted the administrator of the site. So that, just to keep that in the back of your mind, we want to create a way that the awards will not show for anybody but the administrator. Or let me actually, I'm going to change this one. Award winning. Because we want the administrators to be able to award this as a yes or no checkbox. Update this field. Because if we just left our custom post type using pods like this, then anybody who has the ability to edit this custom post type, oops, where'd it go? Edit this, will be able to see it. See, they're going to be able to see this yes checkbox. And again, they're sort of kind of lumped together here as additional fields. We'd like this to look a little bit nicer. We'd like to be able to manage what this screen lays out to be and how it is going to be useful for whatever our client is going to use it for. So in this manner, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you 2 things you could do. The first thing is we could put certain permissions for and capabilities for this field. So if we did that and we came back down here, again, this is the editing of the wine custom post type. If you edit this field, over here in the advanced options, you're going to see the ability to restrict access. So that if I said I'm going to restrict access to only allow the editor and the administrator to see this, or maybe let's just say I'm going to restrict it just to the administrator, let me update this field, and I'm going to show you something cool. So I've saved this pod. We should be looking at it as the administrator, which means award-winning is visible. I have a plugin added on the site that allows me to switch between users. It's called Switch Users or Switching Users. And I have another test user that's an editor. If I were to switch to Bob, and Bob was going to go edit the wines, notice how Bob cannot see the award-winning. That's because we have restricted the capability so that only the administrator would have access. So that's one thing to do. But again, we still have all of our fields lumped into a single more fields meta box. So let me go switch back to my admin account. And I'm going to remove this type of permissions, and I'm going to show you another way that you can handle this. So I'm just saving that. Oops. Update field. Not sure why it didn't. Oh, I know why. Okay, I'll explain what just happened and why that error message happened, just so if anybody wonders. It actually has to do with the WordPress nuance. Anytime you submit a form, WordPress wants to make sure that you are the user that you claim to be when you are submitting that form and you have the permissions to do that. Because I was switching between users on this tab, when I switched to one user and switched back, that meant my logged in user over here was no longer a, quote, valid user, even though I hadn't done anything. So when I hit save, it was like, error, you didn't have permission to do that. So all I have to do, and if you ever run into that, just refresh the page, and then it refreshes your, quote, permission to be able to do whatever your user count capable. That's just a side little trail. It has to do with WordPress, but lots of people like to know what happens during live webinars and why I did what I did. Okay, so I showed you how to set the permissions. The next thing we are going to do is learn about something called Pods Group Add. Pods Group Add, and I will go ahead and paste that URL into the chat room. It's actually a URL to the Pods documentation area. It is very important for you to know to take your Pods capabilities to the next level. This is a simple little function that is going to generate a custom post type with some arguments, and we're gonna do this right now. And in order to do this, you will need to use a text editor and most likely go into your functions.php of your active child theme. So I'm using the Coda editor on Mac. I'm in the functions.php file of my active theme. So if you use a child theme, make sure you're in the functions.php of your child theme. Now, Pods has, if you've never done anything with action hooks in WordPress, a quick explanation is an action hook is a location in code that is simply a holding place, or like a Tupperware container that is waiting for other developers to add their own code to those locations. So think about it as like a mailbox. If you're driving through a suburban city, you're going to see lots of mailboxes along the side of the road. The mailman can come by and put mail in each individual location that goes to that specific house owner. Those pieces of mail are like little custom functions that we are using. That's what hooks are in WordPress. So WordPress itself and plugins and themes, they offer these hooks that exist that are open mailboxes just waiting for us as users of the site to add our own code into that location. And so whenever you see in WordPress PHP the word add action, that's what's happening. It means, hey, I'm a mailman and I'm ready to go down the road and put something in the mailbox. So what's the mailbox address that we're looking at? It's called Pods Meta Groups. This is a mailbox in Pods that is going to allow us to customize this type of thing, the meta boxes that Pods creates for us. So now that you know a little bit about what action hooks are in WordPress, we can add our own function, which would be our letter that we are leaving in the mailbox. And we're going to call this one our super custom letter. Again, in PHP, you can make the name of a function be anything you want. It helps it to be a little more descriptive so that if you ever go back and look at your code, you know what in the world it was you were trying to do. Things in the back are simply more of priority and when it runs inside this mailbox, inside this hook. So what we have to do now is we run a simple function. We define the function, the name of the function, and then we do super custom letter. And inside the arguments here, we're going to pass in a type and a name. These are PHP variables that store lots of information. For those of you who are more familiar with WordPress training we do here at WPStudio, we spend a lot of time talking about PHP variables, how we can store information, arrays, content, all the stuff that we can do with PHP variables. And we're just passing in predefined variables that have lots of information, like the name of the pod, the type of the custom post type. That's what's happening here. Okay, so I told you all about pods group add. We're going to break pods group adds into its very basic elements. There are really 5 parameters that you need to know about. There's 6, but most people, I think, are only going to ever use 5 of the parameters. So here inside this function, all this means is whatever is talked about inside these braces is going to be the letter that gets put into this mailbox. So what are we going to put into that mailbox is pods group add. So everything that exists inside these parentheses are called parameters. And it's a way for us to say, hey, pods, we want you to go to this function that you have already defined, and we want you to do certain things. And the parameters tell it what to do. So pods in the actual core code has this all defined. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to say, well, I want you to create a meta box. I want you to put the title here. I want you to do this. We just need to pass in the key bits of information. So the first thing is, the first parameter is the name of the pod that we want to add. So let's go back over here, and just so we remember, I'm going to come over here to our edit the pods. I'm going to show you where I get the thing. We're going to edit the wines pod. This is the name of the pod, wine. So therefore, if we want to add a special grouping of fields or a meta box, we want to add it to the wine, the wine custom post type. Whoops. So that's the first parameter. It's always going to be first. The name of the pod is always going to be first. And in just a moment, I will show you how we can attach it to multiple pods. But we'll deal with just a single thing at once. The second parameter is the title of the screen. Because if we were to look at this, and let me go add wine, add new, the title of the meta box currently, by default, for pods is more fields. Well, in our second parameter, and it always must be the second parameter, we can now rename that. So therefore, let me do something like super secret. So that will actually show up as the title. And then the third one, it's not the final, but it's the third one for what we're going to be using, are the list, comma, delimited list, that means comma separated list of field names. So here's the names of the fields that are part of the wine custom post type. So if I wanted to include flavor profile and color of wine, I simply, let me do this so that you can see it. I separate these two names, flavor wine, or flavor profile, comma, color of wine, and we're done. Now we're going to add a few other things, but I'm going to save this. So this function is going to be saved into the pods meta group. It's only going to apply to the wine custom post type, the wine pod, with the name super secret, and these are the two fields that are going to show up. So when I save this, great. I'm going to refresh on our add new wine area, and we're going to see that, guess what? That more fields is gone. It now says super secret, and I'm only using the 2 fields that I wanted to show. But wait, we have other fields, don't we? Of course we do. We have things like award winning, we have things like type of grape, and regional location. So let's take a look at a few of the other things we can do with this pods add group. Now, we can add infinite number of pods group add to this function. So you don't need to create a new function every single time you want to create a custom post type. It can all live here in the same function. So I just do pods group add. I'm going to add it to the wine, and we're going to call this one our Selectorama. And in this, that's going to be the title. In this, we are going to do type of grape and regional location. So we're going to have type of grape field and regional location field. Now we're going to add something additional. There's 2 more parameters that we can use. The 4th parameter in this list of pods group add is the context. So this is like the part of the page on the edit screen where it should be shown. If you are familiar with actually creating meta boxes in code, there's 2 things. There's context and there's priority. Context would be normal. There's 3 options. Normal, which would be, again, in this area, after the traditional WordPress fields like the title, like the content. So normal would be down here. There's advanced, which would put the fields above this stuff. And then there's side, so that we can actually put things on the sidebar. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to assign this Selectorama to the sidebar area by simply saying side. And then there's a context, the priority has high, core, default, or low. High is going to be above everything else. Core default would be in its normal location wherever it appears. A priority of low would be at the lowest point, the last field that might be added. So if I were to set this as high, and we saved this field, now we should have in our wine custom post type a meta box that says Selectorama using these fields. So let me save this, and it should be on the sidebar, and it should be above the publish screen. So cross our fingers. If we've done everything correct, that's where it should show up. And look at that. We are now starting to customize how we want our custom post type to show for this. And see, now we've got our grapes here. We've got our regional locations here. We've still got our super secret area. But guess what? We've got one more field that we didn't do anything with, the award winning. So let's go ahead and add that to a different location. So go back here. And again, as I said, we can add as many pods group adds as we want. We can add a pods group add. Again, it's going to go to the wine custom post type, the wine pod. And we're going to call this one our award special delivery. I have no idea. we're just making it up. And let me go make sure I know what it says. Award_winning is the field name. So that name of the pod, title, then the field, award winning. This time, instead of saying side, I'm going to use advanced. So advanced should show up before anything else, and I'm going to do a high priority. So that now we should have a field that shows up at the very top. Oops. Wait a minute. That didn't show up at the very top. Why didn't it show up at the very top? Okay, advanced should be there. Let me try one more thing. It should be advanced. I don't think it's advanced. I'm more than willing to try them. Yeah, it's not even... See, advanced doesn't exist. I didn't think it... So advanced puts it there. Let me try normal and high. Or I may have just found a bug. Okay. Well, okay, let's just say this puts us at above this one, because this one would have been default. This first one would have been default normal, and it would have been default as the two other options, normal and high. I'm going to actually drop the last one and see if that will simply push it to the top. Sometimes if you leave off one of the parameters, you'll have better luck. Nope, still there. Advanced is still showing up there. So I'll have to dig into that. Normally when you set a meta box, the advanced should go to the very top. Because your normal, your advanced area is up here, your sidebar here, and your normal is down here. Okay, so let me go. I want to deal one other thing with this advanced area. Remember how I showed you there's one way that you could use this advanced, you could use the settings here in the advanced area to control and restrict access. I thought we had gotten rid of that. So the access is allowing everybody to see it. But remember, WordPress has its own user roles system. Conditional logic can be used within here so that we could say something like, if the current user is the editor or the administrator, we're going to show this pods group add. So all that means is we're going to wrap pods group add inside a conditional tag. And if you've never done WordPress conditional logic, I really encourage you to start looking up conditional tags. Maybe you start using the widget logic plugin to control when a widget will show and when it's not. If you are looking for what's my next step in my WordPress knowledge growth, I would almost always encourage people, if you don't know conditional logic yet, that is your next step, because you can use it in just about everything. So in this one, if current user can, and I'm going to say be the administrator, hopefully I spelled that right. So if the user can, oops, need to have this. So in PHP, this means if this is true, PHP continues to execute everything inside this wrapper. And pods group add, if the person is not the administrator, this will not even be run by PHP. So normal and high puts that there. I thought we tried that. Maybe I typed it wrong. So let's go back and look. So here I'm on my add new. So I've got my award delivery, special delivery checkbox showing up. Super secret and my selectorama. If I go over here and we're going to go to the users and I'm going to switch over to pretend to be Bob the editor, We're switching over to Bob. Yes, see, now we're Bob. I'm going to go to wine. I'm going to add new. And you'll notice how Bob does not have the award-winning area. So this allows us to do lots of really cool things of customizing the entry point to the custom post types of all the different fields. Quick reminder, it is simply name the pod, the title, the listing of all the fields that you want to use, the position, the context is what it's called, and the priority. We're going to try one other thing to see if it's actually reacting to priority of being run. Oops. Sorry, I'm jumping around here. Oh, wait, I need to turn off this guy because he can't see it anyway. Yeah. Now, the function I gave that's here in the PHP file is only visible in PHP. It's never going to show anywhere on your site or something like this. So when you start learning the pods group add, it gives you the control to move beyond just simply dumping out all the fields. Because that's what pods does with this. Now, yes, you could sit here and you could organize the pods by dragging and dropping in the order in which you want them to appear. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to, I would think, for client work, you need to organize these a little bit better. The fields area here simply gives you the ability to create all the fields that you will associate with the custom post type. And so, I was also going to let you know that, well, what if we wanted to use a pods group or a pods group add on multiple post types? Because we can do that. We can start to say, I'm going to share a meta group with multiple custom post types. So let's just pretend, and we're going to add this flavor type of grape and regional profile, the drop downs, the one that's on the sidebar. The way pods group adds allows us to combine different pod names is not like this. We don't simply put them together in a comma separated list. We have to put them into an array, so each one would be treated as an individual item. And that's what an array does. It's in PHP. It's a list item where we can treat each individual item as its own. And so to create an array, all we're doing is typing the word array and then wrapping that in a semicolon, parentheses. So that now let me go look at the pods just so I don't get the names wrong. So let's come over here. So we've got grape and region. I want to add it to all three. So we've got wine, grape, region. So see what I've done? Inside an array, in the first element that's separated by a comma, now this pods group will add a Selectorama meta box that consists of these two field names, and it will be placed in all three of these custom post types in these pods. So now when I save this, we can go look and say, all right, here's the add new. Selectorama. Whoops. Awesome. Hold on. I broke something. I told you I'd break the internet. Okay, now let's dig into why I broke the internet. So we've got an array as the first item. I missed a closing bracket. Where did I miss the... So here's where the array opens and closes. It's a good guess. Select a Rama. See, this is all one line. It's just wrapping because I've zoomed in. What's crazy is we're using too much memory. This is a dedicated server. Okay. Did I get the name of the pod right? Let's try something else. All right, 1 second. Awesome way to... So these are grapes. Yeah, we are using all the memory to assign this meta, but something's wrong with that. Oh, I know what it is. Here's the oops button. I think this is what it was. We are trying to assign to a custom post type grape that includes a relationship field which is referencing the grape custom post type. That would be like I am trying to say, here is me inside a list of me. So if I were to change this one to, let's use these two that are not, we're changing it away from the relationship fields. Let's see if we can pull that off. I believe if this works, then that was the issue. No, that wasn't the issue. We are just running around and around and around. Try one more. No, I'm running out of a memory issue. Okay, let me set it back just to see if we are still there or if I've really messed up the server. Okay, we're still there. Let's check the wine. Yep, flavor profile. They're still there. Okay. I wonder if I just broke... I broke pods somehow. But it could have been my code. So even if we add an array, which should be the wine, comma, grape. So that closes that off. Everything else should stay the same. So I'm no longer using the relationship area. And we're back here. Let me try one other thing to see if, because I know this should work here. Nope. All right, I will have to figure this out. I will see if I can add the answer to this in the YouTube replay. But I shouldn't have a memory drop because we were simply using a regular field. No drop downs, no nothing. I can try that, Jesse. I do not believe that actually in the syntax that shouldn't have anything to do with it. Because even just adding a separate one. All right, we'll add to the just the grape to see if that. I think I know what it is. Grape has no fields. Oops. No, that's just a regular syntax error. Did that not? Oh, wrong one. Oh, it's there. Let's try all region grape. See, that worked. Setting to the grape. All right. So we now know it works individually on the grape. It works individually on the wine. Why? Because we're using the same profile, same profile. Let me comment this out because maybe we are also having an issue of it duplicating on the same one. So now we're adding in the grape, we're adding in the wine. We now know that the only thing we are doing is a double one here without this additional one that we had. So I commented that out. All right, this is the big... Nope. All right, this should work because we know it works on one and it works on the other. But for some reason, it's not working on both at the same time. And that is an issue. And you want to know why? Because, yeah, that's... I will dig into that. And again, both of these are simply fields, and they have nothing to do with this. They work on the individual grape, they work on the individual wine, but something is going on with Pods that it should have the ability to add an array for the custom post type or the pod name. So rather than keeping everybody on the call for while I mess around trying to figure this up, I will put the answer in the YouTube replay. Or if you're a member of WPStudio, I'll put that in the replay area, what the answer is once I figure it out. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me and experiencing disaster along with me. But hopefully now you can see this. Instead of just doing a single meta box, start to customize the meta box. Jesse, yes, the visibility area is located when you go edit the pod. If we were to click on wines or something, click edit, it's always going to be in the advanced tab of an individual field where you can choose to restrict by a certain area. So thanks everybody for hanging out. For those of you who are members of WPStudio, don't forget we have a very special webinar tomorrow where I will be building step-by-step a photo blogging website where people will be able to upload their photos directly from their phones on a WordPress form that they can access through their phones. And then we are creating a special custom template and a display and a sorting ability for those photos. It's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. If you're not a member yet, definitely check out WP Studio. If not, you can catch the replays on YouTube, as well as, if you're not signed up for the emails that happen at WP Studio, I encourage you to just visit the homepage, and if you are logged out, just wait just a minute or two. You'll actually see an email area that shows up, or you can simply enter your email here. I really only send emails when we have upcoming free events or specials that happen, and you can tune in at that point. So thanks, everybody. I'm going to end this webinar. I will have the solution for you when I get it, along with the replay. Take care. Have a great rest of the Tuesday. And again, if you have any questions, you can always email me at benjamin@wpstudio.com. Take care.